Hi, it's Elise here with a whole new Teen Book Spotlight. So our theme for this week, as we wrap up this year, we are taking a look at some historical fiction. But the goal of the ones we're going to take a look at, I love reading historical fiction about maybe events in history we don't know a lot about, or maybe a time period that doesn't get the type of coverage it should because maybe it's not as popular or whatever, but they're filled with such good stories and information that it just makes you want to learn more about them. So we have 6 books here today. That's what it is. It's historical fiction that is all events that have happened and maybe need to be discussed more about. And this is our starting place. So let's get started. Our first one is one of my favorites. Now, I love this author, Ruta Sepetys. She's going to come up later in another one of her books because I have to talk about 2 of her books. She is one of my all-time favorites. I highly recommend anything by her. I'm super excited. In a couple of weeks, she has a brand new one coming out. It is already on the to-read list. I am so excited. This is Salt to the Sea. You might have heard of it before. I highly recommend this one. World War II is coming to an end, and thousands of refugees are making their way through what's known as East Prussia with the hope of getting freedom. They received word that there's this ship that's off the coast of Denmark that will take them away from the horrors of war. But this is like basically the last ship that's taking refugees. So it is a race to get there. Trying to get to the Wilhelm Gustaf, that's the name of the boat. 4 teenagers that are refugees, they start out separately, they meet along the way, and they decide they're going to make the trek together, along with others that they meet along the way, because they come to realize there is strength in numbers. There is safety in numbers when you're trying to make your way across war-torn Europe. Not a good idea to go by yourself. But they each have their own secrets and their own stories to tell as they travel and fight for survival, culminating in this epic true story of what happens with this ship. And when you read what happens, you will not honestly believe that this is what actually happens with this ship, but I can promise you it is true. Told in alternating points of view about an event that's not really discussed in school and anything we watch on TV, anything like that. This amazing historical fiction book will leave you breathless. Again, it made me research more after I was done with it, because I had to be like, hold it, I need to know more about this event. Highly recommend this. This is Salt to the Sea. Our next one is Fatal Throne. So this is all about Henry VIII and his 6 wives. That's right, he had 6 different wives. Most ended up meeting some sort of unhappy ending, whether it was with their relationship or even with their lives. This historical fiction book winds its way through all of their lives and how they intersected to being queens of England at some point in time. Some were definitely longer than others. There were some that were just queen for like days. Yeah, days. And some of the names, maybe ones that you've heard of before, like Anne Boleyn, she always kind of seems to kind of get well known. And of course, Henry VIII, because his point of view was shared through here as well. To names like Anne of Cleves and Catherine Howard, who were actually Queen of England too at some point. All of them shared these same goals though. They got married to Henry VIII with the goal of producing a male heir. And they needed to do this in order to keep their lives intact. Told through 7 different authors, so what each author does is they each take a point of view, including Henry VIII. And there's authors like Candace Fleming to M.T. Anderson, Linda Sue Park, Jennifer Donnelly, just to name a few of them. And they each give this unique point of view from each real individual during history, while providing you all of the drama, the romance, the court intrigue, the political drama that you can handle. This is Fatal Throne. A Northern Light by Jennifer Donnelly. So it's 1906, and Maddie is working her summer at a resort in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. And it's the last thing she wants to do. She wants to go to college. She's been accepted into Barnard College to go into their writing program, but she already knows she's going to be stuck working at the farm, taking care of her brothers and sisters after the death of her mother. One evening at the resort, Maddie's minding her business, doing her job, and she's handed these 2 bundles of letters by this guest who is staying there named Grace. And Grace asks Maddie to take these bundles of letters, and she wants Maddie to go burn them, to destroy them. But before she can do that, the next morning, Grace ends up dead. What then looks like an accidental drowning soon doesn't seem so maybe accidental, as Maddie decides that she's going to read the letters. Let's see what these were about. And then what she uncovers changes everything. Maddie's life is in more danger than she ever thought. This historical fiction book, what I love about this book is it is based on a true crime event that really happens at this resort in the Adirondacks in upstate New York in 1906 with these names of these people. Craziness. So if you love historical fiction, true crime, murder, mystery, a little bit of romance, you will not be able to put this one down. I highly encourage you read the author's note at the end because it will tie everything together with fiction and real life. This is A Northern Light. We are all that's left. 17-year-old Zara does not have the best relationship with her mother, Nadia. She knows that her mother is an immigrant from Bosnia, which is a country in Europe, and it is there that her mother witnessed and suffered too many traumas to count during the ethnic cleansing of the Muslim people in the 1990s. But her mother doesn't disclose anything beyond that. When a terrorist attack occurs though, and it catches Zara and Nadia up, Zara's injured and Nadia's actually in a coma, Zara finds this box in their house. And it contains photos and items of her mother's past. And it changes both of their lives forever. This is told through 2 points of view, Zara's and Nadia's, especially it picks up right after this box is found. And you will read all about what Nadia went through between 1992 and 1999. And you'll be learning and growing with Zara as she uncovers what really happened. This is a time that in history that only happened 30 years ago or so, 25, 30 years ago. And it should be discussed, but normally isn't. And it's usually not shared, but it should be. The author does not shy away. There's graphic depictions of violence, war crimes, there's ethnic cleansing, what really happened during the conflict. There is descriptions of attempted sexual assault, but this is a multi-layered book that will stick with you long after you close the page. It's about mothers and daughters, about figuring out, learning from our past. This is We Are All That's Left. The Fountains of Silence. Here's Ruta Sepetys again. Promised she was going to turn back up, and here she is. So it's Spain, 1957, and 18-year-old Daniel makes his way to Madrid with his wealthy parents. Staying in the touristy side of the city, Daniel wants to use this trip to his advantage. He wants to be a photojournalist, even though his father really doesn't agree with that. So he decides he wants to enter this contest. And if he can win this contest, maybe then his father will see that this could actually work out for him. So he wants to use this opportunity to capture what life is really like in Spain after the Spanish Civil War of the 1930s, and now under the ruthless rule of Franco. He befriends this maid in a hotel named Anya, and her family is barely surviving, and soon Daniel finds himself wrapped up in Anna's life, along with her brothers who are taking risks that could cost the family everything. But they have to be taken in order for them to survive. And soon Daniel finds himself torn between these two worlds. That one that's his wealthy family, complete with his father befriending Franco, to seeing the reality of how people are being forced to live and survive in the country during Franco's regime. Daniel will need to make choices that will not only impact his life, but also the ones around him. This historical fiction book has mystery, romance, family, drama. I highly recommend it. I can't really think of another YA book out there that deals with, the aftermath of the Spanish Civil War. Incredibly eye-opening. I know I didn't really learn about it in history class. Should have learned about it. This is a great gateway to figuring out more about it. This is The Fountains of Silence. And our last one is Out of Darkness. This book starts with a tragic school explosion in Texas, 1937. And then it goes backwards. Because then that's where you meet our two main characters. There's Naomi, who is Mexican, and Wash, who is black. And in East Texas, everything was decided by race. And the segregation was clear and evident. Not only was it like white and blacks, but each group had their own rules and places they needed to be. And Naomi and Wash should not have even come in contact with each other just because they were different from one another. And there were these clear lines that couldn't be crossed. There was individuals that were there to enforce it. But when Naomi and Wash meet, they know that any type of relationship is a huge no-no, but they decide, you know what? They want to be friends. And soon that friendship starts morphing into something a little bit more. And as that relationship starts to deepen, they need to start keeping everything a secret. And they're just trying to navigate their lives while trying to figure out this world that they're stuck living in. The author does not shy away from the discussing the realities of the time and the place and how it impacted everything, including how the role of race and segregation played a role in this explosion that I had never heard anything about, knew anything about, but come to find out, it is still the worst school disaster in U.S. history. This is told through numerous points of view, not just Wash and Naomi's, but their points of view are in there as well. But you will read about a time and a place in our history, in our country, that unfortunately race defined everything, even though it shouldn't. This is Out of Darkness. So these are just 6 of the books that we have here at the library that are historical fiction, but they're kind of, about a time, maybe an event that maybe you've never heard of or you know of briefly. I highly recommend all of these. So I encourage you to come on out, check out one of these, maybe take yourself back in time as we start getting into 2022. And if these don't work, but you want another historical fiction, we are here to help you find that perfect book. I hope you tune back next week when we do a whole new Teen Book Spotlight, and have a great week.